And that, of course, is very fascinating. It's what I call the father's catch-22, that dads learn to love the family by having to be away from the love of their family. But when the Pew Research Center asked dads who were full-time working dads, would you prefer to remain full-time working, or if you had the option of leaving your job full-time and being full-time with the children, which would you prefer? 49% of dads said who worked full-time, so these are not sort of loser dads or dads not inclined to work. 49% of dads who work full-time said that they would prefer to be home with their children full-time, and maybe work a little bit or not outside of the home. And yet that question has almost never even asked of dads. Usually when middle and upper middle class people are married and they have children, the mom generates three options. Option one is to work full-time. Option two is to be full-time with the children. Option three is to do some combination of both. And dads, they have three options too. Option one is to work full-time. Option two is to work full-time. And option three is to work full-time, or more accurately, if they're a working class person, to work two jobs. If they're more of a white collar worker, they'll tend to sort of work more hours at the job that they're doing. And so that type of, these types of differences are not seen. And the easiest way to see these is that women who have never been married and never had children, they earn 117% of what men who have never been married and never had children earn. It's only when men get married and have children that they begin to do what you were talking about before, and start taking on a commitment, a new responsibility.
Okay, so your claim, it's no wonder you're so popular. Your claim is essentially that men don't earn more because of privilege. They earn more because they take responsibility. Not that women don't. I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying that. They're taking responsibility in a different way because they're focused on the children, and maybe they sacrifice their career for that, and maybe that's what they want to do, but it doesn't matter. They're still doing it. But the reason that men earn more is because they're earning more for the people they love.
Even politically liberal people who normally believe in minimal sex roles, when it comes to the children being born, the mothers are much more likely to sort of, even if they're working full-time, remember we said full-time is 35 hours a week, they're much more likely to go from maybe working 45 hours a week before to doing a few things that are different. One is to working not only fewer hours, but finding a job that is closer to home so they can be more flexible. And we see this, the best way I think to understand the difference in the pay gap is to look at what happens with women who own their own businesses versus men who own their own businesses. So take two groups that are quite equal. They both have MBAs, and so they're committed, obviously, to work. The Rochester Institute of Technology studied both groups of men and women with both MBAs who owned their own business. Women earned only 49% of what men earned. And so the assumption when they started this was, wow, women who own their own business, that will, they don't have the discrimination of, the discriminating male bosses. And so therefore they'll be valued more. They'll probably earn as much or more than their male counterparts. And the answer was no. So the Rochester Institute of Technology then investigated that further. And they asked women and men, which is the most important values for you in owning your own business? 72% of the men said the most important value for me was greater income. Only 29% of women said it was greater income. The women wanted fulfillment.
More time.
They wanted time. They wanted flexibility, and they wanted safety also. Men were much less concerned about safety than women were, which is why all of your hazards.
That's why Uber drivers make more when they're men, exactly. At least in part. Yeah. And higher risk tolerance.
Yes, and I mean, if let's say you don't have a college education, or even you've dropped out of high school, and so if you might get a job as a garbage collector. You have to get up early in the morning. It's dirty. It's hazardous, and yet a female who has an art degree, a master's degree in art, may earn less than that garbage collector. And partially it's because people tend to need their garbage picked up more than they need a new piece of art. And so these are so many of the 25 differences that are between men and women. But the good news about this—
How did we get to a state, Warren, where given 25 differences is a lot of differences, and it doesn't make for a very big difference in pay, by the way. Even the most radical proponents of the unequal pay theory are struggling to come up with a figure that exceeds 15%. So 25 differences amounting to 15% isn't that much of a difference. But, if the data are so clear that it's fathers who are driving this, and it's relatively self-evident, I would say, if it was single guys that was driving this, you could make a case that it was for selfish, pleasure-seeking purposes, right? And that would fit pretty nicely into the privilege narrative, right? Power-hungry, greedy, selfish, short-sighted men with privilege make more money. It's like, well, wait a minute, it's fathers. Oh, so why are they doing that? Well,
and never married women who have never had children earn 117% of what never married men who have never had children earn. Never married women who have never had children, they are more likely to plan for their careers, and they do earn more. And what's most astonishing is that never married women who have never had children have earned more than never married men who have never had children since the 1970s. Just now, it's 117% more. And so exactly what you said is true. It is not never married women who have never had children. They tend to focus on their careers, whereas never married men who have never had children, they're much more likely to be able to do something like music or art. And gay men historically have often been very successful in art because they've been usually never married men who have never had children, and they've been able to afford to do things that were less likely and dependable to produce money.
Oh, I've never heard that explanation before. That's quite an explanation.